Great. Thank you, Pam. Good afternoon, everybody. I promise less graphs and charts and data. I love it, Matt. We use it a lot. That is not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is listening directly to rural communities and helping them navigate what resources are out there to help build some of that capacity that Marie talked about. So I'll kind of repeating Pam's introduction, but we were created in 2020 by the governor's office to be a voice for rural communities at the state level. And so we were really given the task of being that one-stop shop, helping to navigate across other agencies on important issues, and really listening to rural communities and bringing that voice into the way that we design programs and projects. But also then taking all the information and the great work that's happening across state government and making sure that rural communities are aware of it. And there's that opportunity for them to actually access it. So that's our role. I have a team of 6 folks in my office. We're hiring now for a rural initiatives manager. If you know anybody good people know good people. But that's our role at WEDC, which is the state's economic development agency. And I'm going to talk a little bit today just about how we accomplish our work, as well as what resources WEDC has to offer rural communities, things we've heard and listened to through rural listening sessions across the state, as well as some of the other really timely and pertinent resources that I think might be good for this audience. So I'll jump right in. So how do we do what we do? I call our office kind of a startup within a larger organization. So we've been spending the last couple of years really defining what does the office do? How do we add value, both at the state level and at the local level, and with regional partners? So we kind of consider ourselves a rural thought leader, which means we want to partner with anybody and anybody who cares about rural communities and has a problem that they want to solve. We want to be part of the conversation. We want to help connect people to resources. And we want to tell you what we've learned through the creation of the Rural Voices Report, but also what we learned from other states or other partners and what's working well in other parts of the country, and how could we help bring that idea to Wisconsin and make it applicable to our communities here in the state. We also work, in addition to working with rural communities, we also work a lot with our tribal nations here in Wisconsin. We identify specific projects where we can utilize WDC investment to take a good idea that might be replicable and scalable and bring that to address some sort of systemic change across the state. We are a convener. Like Marie mentioned, a lot of our job is working just behind the scenes to get people together to help address some of those capacity challenges. And lastly, a big part of our job is resource sharing. So we have a website called ruralwi.com, where we have a whole body of different grant and technical assistance resources where people can come use our grant database and see what's out there that might have a resource that might solve for an issue that they have. So we are both looking for resource partners to help tell us, like, hey, we're not represented on your website. We want you to be included on our website. And we also want more rural communities to know about this resource because we're all busy. We all have a lot that we're doing. A lot of rural community members do their full-time job and then are volunteers in the evenings and weekends. And so if we can make it easier for people to understand what's out there, that's what we want to do. So over the last summer, we did some rural listening sessions across the state just to go out and hear what's working for you. We wanted to learn about how rural communities are accessing WDC programs, but then also how can the state better be a partner with rural communities? And what are some of the issues that you have that maybe there isn't a program for, just so we were aware of that. And so some observations from those sessions and some of the other work we've been doing. Small business really matters in rural communities. I think for a long time, when you think about economic development, there's this idea that you're trying to bring some big business to your community and create jobs. And the goal is always to create jobs. And jobs are important, don't get me wrong. But really, small businesses, in terms of recycling those dollars, are even more important in rural communities. And beyond that, small businesses can really help a community shape their identity moving forward. do they want to be an arts community? I think about Rhinelander and the Hodag and how you can go to 5 shops in Rhinelander and find different versions of the Hodag. And it's really been this kind of community identity that's people really rally around. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for small business, not just to generate local income that's recycled in the local economy, but also to create an identity for their community and a direction for where they want to go moving forward. Other examples, outdoor recreation is really important. The state has an Office of Outdoor Recreation. We just had a large conversation this morning of the number of businesses that are really concerned with the lack of snow and how it's impacting tourism. It's impacting, the hospitality business. It's impacting local shops. So how do we help communities find resources to when those kinds of situations happen? The second is that big word capacity that Marie mentioned as well. So, as I mentioned, a lot of folks working in economic development in rural communities are usually volunteers or working part-time. They don't have the ability to spend a lot of time writing grants. So how do we help with grant writing? How do we help make sure that folks are aware of what's going on? Our team just launched a new program called Thrive Rural Wisconsin. We're in the community selection process for that right now, where we're going to be working one-on-one with 10 rural communities. We have 2 rural development specialists that will be partnered with those communities to help them with project management, move projects forward, help get quotes from consultants, things like that. Do a lot of that body of work that there really isn't time or capacity for a community to do so that they can move particular projects in their community forward. And then kind of building off a little bit of Matt's slides around those changes in population. We also hear a lot about climate migration and the concerns of rural communities that they maybe don't have the housing stock, which we've discussed already today, or some of the infrastructure to grow in a way that they're concerned about based on climate migration and those trends. So that's our office and some of the things we've been hearing about. I want to talk a little bit about Wisconsin economic development as well and make sure folks are aware of the resources that we have. We're housed in the Business and Community Development Department at WEDC. Mike Ward is our VP. But we have a number of different programs. We have community development programs, business development and attraction programs, as well as international business development programs. And we're broken into 9 different regions across the state with a regional economic development director that coordinates within each of those regions. So within our community development department, we have a number of different programs and services. A lot of folks may be familiar with our Main Street program. Erin Welty and her team are fantastic. We have brownfields grant programs, capacity building grants, Fab Labs, which is a program for high schools to basically create maker spaces within their high school that help with like pre-manufacturing skills and things like that. Idle sites redevelopment and diverse business development, as well as historic tax credits. Now, when we went out to talk to rural communities about all these programs and about what WEDC does, the one program that we heard a lot about was our community development investment grants. But that program is really accessible for rural communities and probably the one program in this department that folks were most aware of. So that program can help with commercial real estate development. It's a $250,000 grant for commercial real estate. This is an example of one of the projects that we funded through this grant program. We also do a number of grants around helping small business providers create new programs to support entrepreneurship in their communities. That's through our E&I team, and so we have business development and attraction. We have our entrepreneurial partnership grant, and one of my goals is to create a larger pipeline of communities, rural communities applying to this program. So county economic development folks, regional economic development folks that are really creating new programs that help support entrepreneurship in rural communities. Size Up Wisconsin's also a great tool. It's a data tool that helps communities or small businesses in particular have a better sense of what the market is in their area and get some of the data that larger businesses often use for site selection or other business growth strategies that a smaller business wouldn't typically have access to on their own. Our office also facilitates cooperative development grants. So in our previous iteration, that was used just for feasibility studies, but we can actually use those now for the development of new cooperatives across the state. And of course, we work through partnerships a lot. So I had to give a plug for the Cooperative Center at UW. They provide a lot of technical assistance and help create that pipeline of grant programs, of grantees, excuse me. Another thing that our office does is really take really complex resources and try to make them easier for folks to navigate. And so we created a website on a web page on our website dedicated to the bipartisan infrastructure law. So this has direct links to all of the other state agencies and what their bill programs are. There's both formula funding, which means it's funding going to a program that already existed at the state level. And then there's competitive grant funding through that program as well. We have a list of consultants and grant writers who can help support communities in applying for some of that funding, and a downloadable spreadsheet of what the most recent or open opportunities are with that funding. The Inflation Reduction Act is also a really timely resource to be aware of. Our partners at USDA are receiving a lot of funding for soil conservation, as well as some energy solutions. One program that I think, it's not advancing. Oops, sorry. One renewable energy program that I thought was really interesting was the direct pay tax credit, which like a private business would always be eligible for getting the tax benefit of creating renewable infrastructure, but this allows nonprofits and city or municipal governments to benefit from the tax benefit of renewable energy as well. And then, as I mentioned, one of the trends that that we're working through is around rural entrepreneurship. So I know Maggie's here from UW Extension. She's focused a lot on developing more programs for rural entrepreneurs throughout the state. WDC received $1 million from the Department of Administration to fund this program and really expanding the resources that the UW Extension offer, as well as the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic to rural entrepreneurs. We also work a lot with USDA and their business and cooperative programs to help bolster rural entrepreneurship across the state. So a lot of what we do is just celebrating what other people in the state are doing and making sure that folks are aware of the resources. So I just want to highlight a few resources that I thought were pertinent to this audience today. DACAP is in the room, but we've been working a lot with their office to promote the Resilient Food Systems Program, RFSI, that has an open grant opportunity right now for kind of middle of the food chain food processing grants, both for equipment grants and infrastructure grants. Obviously, you can go to their website, rfsi.wi.gov, to learn more. We've heard a lot about agritourism and the need to help farmers diversify income. So we've met with WADA. We've looked at some of the national resources that USDA offers, as well as the National Agricultural Law Center. I learned today that the UW Extension folks are putting together a cohort for agritourism, which is amazing. Just thinking about how do we connect farms directly to consumers? How do we help create local entertainment and event venues which solve for other rural livability issues? How do we help provide lodging opportunities for rural communities to bolster tourism and bringing farm revenue to farmers at the same time? And generally, how do we celebrate the rural culture and places that we have throughout the state. So a couple of examples of, I've had the opportunity to travel around the state quite a bit. So a couple of my favorite examples of agritourism, and this is something we want to celebrate a little bit more on our Rural Wisconsin website. We celebrate successes of things that are working well in rural communities throughout the state. And so I'm always looking for more agritourism examples to add to our website. But the Red Clover Ranch in Soldiers Grove provides farm to table dinners, has little cabins that you can rent out for lodging, has a pottery studio. So they're bringing a lot of different cultural amenities to their farm or to their ranch to for income generation, but they're also providing those services for the local community as well. And as part of that kind of placemaking and agritourism work, there's a great resource through USDA called the um, Rural Placemaking Toolkit, which is a great resource just for being more aware of how do you help build some of this placemaking and this place-based tourism strategies and business development strategies that highlight arts and culture of the area. So just wanted to highlight that resource. A great example and a kind of a nationally recognized example here in Wisconsin is the Worm Farm Institute in Reedsburg. Our office sponsors their farm detour every other fall. They have their own method of creative placemaking, which often is thought about only in a downtown context of driving traffic to a downtown, but really can be a regional strategy. And what I love about Worm Farm is they really partner with the farms in their area to be part of the planning process and to engage in placemaking with them. And they do site specific installations on farms throughout Sauk County. And with that, I'll leave my contact information, and I think we're ready for our conversation. Yeah.